Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. There are some people who like to go out for the day without any particular plan or purpose. They follow their nose and just see what turns up. Sometimes at work people adopt the same kind of approach, and you'll probably have heard the phrases used such as, we'll just play it by ear, or let's just fly by the seat of our pants. Now, if you've ever read the Calvin and Hobbes comic strip, you'll know that our two friends have a game which is called Calvin Ball, in which the rules just seem to be made up as you go along. Now, this kind of random approach to life may be appealing at times of leisure or recreation, but it's not the right way to go about getting a complex task done satisfactorily. So in this way, the history of creation is actually quite distinct from the evolution myth, with its unguided, random, purposeless processes. As we've already seen in verses 26 and 27 of this chapter, we see the unfolding of a purposeful plan. And we saw that in verse 26 in that phrase, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Now, in reading the creation of other living things, you'll notice these two phrases in verse 11 and 20, the phrase bring forth, and then in verse 21 and 12 and 21, the phrase brought forth. But with man, we actually see God's special involvement, which is unfolded more in chapter 2. And we see man's position of dominion and lordship as recounted in Psalm 8, where we read, God has crowned him with glory and honour and has put all things under his feet. God has a particular interest in mankind, and he took particular care in his creation as a result. Indeed, we ought never to forget that when God created man, he was creating a race into which his son would one day be born. Now, verse 27 brings before us something else which is purposeful in God's creation. I want to underline that. It says, male and female created he them. And this statement is right up front for the human race, because it's not actually until chapter 6 that we read about the animals being made male and female. The origin of the sexes is a significant problem for evolution, and that is probably why the more that myth is believed, the less importance is placed upon the distinction between male and female, and all the confusion that results from that failure. The difference between the sexes is real, and the distinction is purposeful. And one reason is that it provides the basis for marriage, but more of that in a future video, God willing. Notice too that it is male and female rather than female and male. Now, God was in the act of creating at this point, and he could have done it in either order, but God did it in this order in order to show us that there is a certain precedence in creation. Yes, there is an equality between the sexes, but there is a precedence too. And Paul takes up this whole idea of headship, which is central to the church in 1 Corinthians 11. This idea of submission, which doesn't mean subjugation as so many people think, is central to any ordered society, and it is central to Christian life. But it has fallen out of favour in Western society, where self-expression and what I want is the order of the day. It's when we order our lives according to the pattern that God has provided that we can enjoy his blessing upon us. So we'll consider these issues more as we move forward. But tomorrow we're going to think about the blessing that God bestowed on humanity at the very beginning of time.